Oh, what's this, you ask? Well, this is the MetaZoo rulebook, and today I'm going to be breaking it down for you. I'm going to be showing off this little rulebook today, and going over some rules for you, because MetaZoo is a complicated game, and if you're learning how to play, hopefully this guide and this rulebook breakdown is going to help you out, and I'll teach you some of the tricks and tips that I've learned, and just how to deal with those. So cool. Let's hop into it. So, as you can see here, on this side of the screen, we got our little rulebook online, and there's a link to this entire PDF, this entire Google document. It's a work in progress document, so everything that is found with errors is constantly being updated on here, and you can always refer to this for the newest and best information. I also have this rulebook, and this is one of the rulebooks that comes with every single let me get in focus, every single tribal deck, and even the spell book. So even though this here is the most updated version, that rulebook's still pretty good. So yeah, I'm gonna start getting into it. You got a cover here to rulebook 2020, because this game was technically released in 2020. The release wasn't until March 1st, but cards were out, so the rulebook was in progress. And yeah, the only collectible card game where your surroundings matter. And we got Logan Barnes, Michael Waddell, and Brian Moriel writing this book. Brian has been constantly updating and fixing some rules that we found issues with or need more clarification for. So shout out to Brian, shout out to Mike, and shout out to Logan too. You guys are awesome. You got a nice little table of contents, so if you're not sure where to go for a certain section, you can just refer back to this and find that section. So I mean, this is pretty helpful, but I'm not really going to go into it because I'm just going to scroll through and then break it down step by step for you. So here we go. First section of the book is the how to play, or the quick start. So basically, if you just don't want to learn any of the advanced rules, you just want to play and you want to get used to the game mechanics before anything else, you can just refer to this. And the first step of this is to flip a coin. If you have 2 players, roll a dice. If you have more than 2, you can have up to 4 in this game. Yeah, that's the first step. And basically, whoever wins the coin flip goes first. Then you will draw 7 cards and look at your hand. If you don't like what you have, you can do what's called a mulligan, which basically means you put those cards back into your deck, you shuffle the deck, and then you only draw 6. And let's say you don't like that hand either. You can mulligan again, and then you would draw 5, and 4, and 3, and 2, until you're down to 1. And after that, you can't mulligan anymore. So drawing the first time is going to be the best, but once you get down past 5, it's not going to look great for you. So if you can keep a hand at 5, 6, or 7 cards, I would say that's ideal. And yeah, I'll break down a couple of these rules too. Number 2 says each player starts with a deck of at least 40 cards. So your minimum deck has to be 40 cards. And that's just a generic rule. If it's under, you're automatically disqualified. You can't play. More so for sanctioned and tournament play. There is no maximum deck limit, so you could have up to 300 cards if you wanted. But you have to be able to shuffle the entire deck well within 2 minutes. And if you can't do that, then your deck can't be that big. I personally recommend in between 40 and 50 cards for maximum amount of playability, maximum amount of card variability, and just kind of being able to get the cards you want and draw, have a lot of variety. If we move on to 3, we have our win condition. So much like Yu-Gi-Oh, in MetaZoo you have 1,000 life points as a caster. And if you get knocked to 0, you're done, you lose the game. So one of the ways to win is you can knock the opponent's life points down to 0, which in some cases can take a long time because there are chip damage decks. So there are other win conditions for like tournaments and stuff, but we'll move on to that later. Number 4, you start the game, kind of what I was talking about with drawing, and then 5, you can mulligan until you're down to 1 card, and then you have to play that one. Number 6. So this is kind of confusing because in some games, on your first turn, you don't get to draw because you just drew those 7. But in this game, you actually do draw. So the person that is going first still does get to draw. And so before they play any cards, they should have 8 cards in their hand, if they didn't mulligan. And yeah, that's one of the hardest things that I found to remember, is that you do draw even on your first turn. And then it says bookmark 1 page, which is the same as drawing. Bookmarking in this game means draw. And then awaken all of your fatigue pages. So one mechanic with this in the game is if you have a card on the field, and let me get a card out for you. Alright, so I got a card. So let's say we're playing this Chibi Quetzal. So on my first turn, I would play him sideways, and this means fatigued. If he's upright, he's awakened. So the turn I play him, I have to play him fatigued. And at the start of my next turn, after I draw, he awakens. So now I'm able to attack with him, defend with him, and such. So awaken your cards just means flip them from sideways to upright. So in the future, I'm going to be doing some like voiceover videos of some gameplay so I can explain that further, but for now, that's what it means. So let's see. Alright. 7. Place or contract aura pages in the arena and fatigue them to pay for beasties. Artifacts, potions, and spells. So you can... Aura is the most universal thing in the game. This is what a lightning aura looks like. And if I wanted to play the lightning aura, I would play it normally. And then if I wanted to take the Quetzal out of my hand and play him onto the field, I would fatigue the aura, and then the Quetzal would come in and be able to be played sideways. And then both of these would awaken next turn again, and I'd be able to reuse the aura. You can only place one of these, 1 aura on the field per turn. So that's kind of where the limit. So if on your first hand you have like 7 aura, you can only play 1 per turn. So you could play, in 7 turns, you could play 7 aura. And that just accumulates on the field, and that's the way to get beasties and spells and things across. Because this Quetzal is a lightning aura, you can kind of see it there. You have to use a lightning aura to play it, unless you have some special card like Chaos Crystal, which allows you to play any card, any aura type. So yeah, 7 says you may only contract 1 aura, like I was talking about, unless you have a page that specifies otherwise. So there are special pages that say, oh, you can play more than 1, or put more than 1 down. So any time that you can put aura down, always do it, because it's the most beneficial thing, and it's very, very difficult to be removed from the field. We move on to 8. Pages stay where they're played. You can't really move cards around. There is a card that allows you to move cards wherever you want, but for now, it's not super useful. So just leave them where they're at. And number 9, unless otherwise stated, all pages into the arena fatigued. So that's what I was talking about when they enter sideways. Some cards have certain traits which allow them to enter Awakened, but we'll go over that when we go over traits. Yeah, 10. When a page is used to generate aura, attack, defend, or use an ability, you must fatigue it. So that's another thing I was talking about. If Chibi Quetz is awakened and I attack with him, then I fatigue him, and he can't be used for the rest of the turn unless he somehow gets reawakened. 11, aura pages may be fatigued on any player's turn to generate aura. So let's say I had a spell card that said, oh, I can activate this when my opponent attacks me. If I still have unused aura, I could fatigue it then to play the certain spell card and, I don't know, negate my opponent's attack or do whatever it says. So even on my opponent's turn, if I have fatigue, or if I have aura that's still able to be used, I can still use that. Number 12, for beasties and artifacts, it does not cost any aura to attack, defend, or activate powers, but you must fatigue them. So that's, again, the Quetzal. I fatigue him, and he attacks. That did not, once Quetzal's on the field, I don't have to use the aura for Quetzal anymore. If a page's LP becomes 0 at any time, it is destroyed. So Chibi Quetz has 10 LP. If he gets hit for 20, he's gone. And he goes to the limbo, which is basically cemetery, graveyard, whatever you want to call it. And certain cards like Mothman have like some immortality trait and they can't be removed from combat damage. So we'll get to that later with the trait section again. Number 15, when a spell or potion is contracted, it's placed into the cemetery immediately. So as soon as you use that spell, it doesn't stay on the field. It just goes right into the cemetery after you resolve all of its effects. 16, all pages and effects resolve in a first in, last out order. If more than one effect would activate simultaneously at the start or end of the turn, the active player gets to choose in which order they resolve. So this one's a little bit tricky. It just basically means if I play this first, then it goes first, and then the following order goes after it. And certain cards allow you to play first, certain cards allow you to play last, and certain cards have effects that say at the start of the turn or end of the turn. So it's just kind of about reading and making sure you're playing correctly and when they're played. 17, you may contract Terra during your turn for no aura cost. So Terra are very beneficial, and this is what a lightning Terra looks like. So it costs nothing to be put on the field, and it boosts cards very well. I'm gonna use this for instance. So let's say I had a snowing Terra on the field. This little icon right here, this snowing, matches and corresponds to a snow Terra, and then that says 100 next to it. So Babe's attack would be boosted from 50 to 150 if I had Terra on the field. So it's very beneficial to play. This icon here is what's called a fourth wall effect. So those are beneficial. Number 18, any damage dealt to pages or casters remains between turns. Use tokens. So unless it's otherwise stated, if you take damage, that damage stays. So if Babe here takes 10 damage, his health goes down to 100, and he stays that way unless I have a health potion or he has a regenerative ability, which he doesn't. If a caster has 0 pages in their spellbook, they do not lose the game. So even running out of cards does not mean you win or lose. I mean, if for some reason both players run out of cards, then there's some different win condition with that, but we can discuss that in a sec. Number 20, you may have a side deck with a maximum of 15 pages alongside your spellbook. And that can only be used in between games, so you can just have an extra set 15 cards that if you're playing a best of 3 and you lose a game because you got poisoned and you don't have an antidote, but you know you have an antidote in your side deck, you can swap it out between games, but your deck size has to stay the same. So you'd have to swap a card out and put the antidote in. 21, all unspent generated aura disappears at the end of the turn in which it was generated. So this one is a little different, as it only works with cards like Shock Aura and a few other artifacts. So basically, Shock Aura means once per turn you can generate any aura of any type. That doesn't mean you can generate it to create stacking. Like, so if, let's just say I generated it and then for 10 turns straight generated, I wouldn't have 10 aura. I can only generate to play a card that turn, so it doesn't stack in that way. So now let's move on to page types. This isn't that super difficult to understand, so I'm not going to go over it in crazy detail. The top right, I've explained the life points. This symbol next to it is their aura type, which I kind of explained with the Quetzal also. This is how much they cost, the number next to it. This gray box means neutral, so any aura can be paid for a gray box. It tells you your card type, your name, and how many you can have per deck. So that's one of the best things about MetaZoo, is like up here, if you can see it, it says 2 per spellbook, and you can only have 2 of that card in your deck at one time. So it limits like super powerful cards, like Sam Sinclair here has a 1. And then we've got 4th wall effects, the abilities, metadata such as like date of birth, height, weight, just some fun things to add. The card art, obviously, first edition, and then you have your attack, your strength. So yeah, it's fairly simple to understand. Cards just take reading to learn about them. So moving on to aura pages. All pages, with the exception of potions and Terra, require aura to contract. They have name and a rarity symbol. That's about it. So there's your rarity symbol, and there's its name. And for beasties, we kind of went over up here. And then spells are also very simple. I'm not really going to go over them. These are just breaking down the components that each card has. Same with artifacts and Terra. And I'll show you the Terra. Terra's just got the rarity symbol with the name. And moving on to the aura types. So these are all the aura types in the game right now. Oh, there's some here too, but you got cosmic, you got dark, earth, flame, forest, frost, light, lightning, neutral, spirit, and water. And some cards are better than others currently. Forest and dark have the most amount of cards in the base set. So they theoretically have the most versatility right now because they're the most amount of cards out. So I'm gonna guess play is gonna revolve heavily on dark and forest in this first season, I'm calling it, of like tournaments and things like that. So moving on, this is what a 2-player mat would look like. You have your afterlife, cemetery, and limbo, your side deck, and your spellbook, and then these are all Terra slots. So you can only have 6 Terra on the field at one time, and as soon as the 7th one is played, the very first one that was played gets moved off the field and kicked out. And that currently is one of the only ways to remove Terra. So it's such a powerful card and almost no way to remove it right now. And this kind of just breaks down each section. Limbo, cemetery, and afterlife are the only sections you really need to look at. Limbo, basically, if my Quetzal gets destroyed, it goes into limbo. If a spell or a potion is used, it goes into the cemetery, and things go to afterlife after certain conditions, such as like death beam. It sends anything to the afterlife and things like that. So each person has their own cemetery, limbo, and afterlife. And let's move on. The actual playing of the game. And the only way to win, stated here, is to reduce LP. And some cards like Mothman have win conditions, so be on the lookout for those and just know how to counter them. Setup, shake hands, you can elbow bump, you just be a sportsman, a good sportsman. You flip a coin first, before anything else. And then you draw and mulligan if you want. And then whoever won the coin toss or the dice roll goes first. So turns are fairly simple. You always draw first, and then you awaken your pages, and then you can do any of these in whatever order you want. Contracting aura is the only thing that has a once per turn limit. Everything else you have no limit of doing. So you can place as many Terra pages, trap pages, contract pages, like beasties from your chapter. You can use abilities. You can move trap pages, and you can declare an attack and resolve combat as many times as you want per turn. As long as your beasties and aura allow it, but yeah, so it's kind of a free-for-all other than placing aura once per turn. And after that, you end your turn, you pass to your opponent. And they do the same, and it continues until there's a winner. So this is just kind of a bigger breakdown of the turn steps. I don't really think I need to go into it that much. So I'm just gonna skip it for now. If you would like me to go into it and go over it, I can in a later video, I know more in depth, but try not to make this video 3 hours long for you. So simple version of combat. Let's just go back to the Quetzal. So he's upright, I fatigue him to declare an attack, and for instance, I'm just gonna attack the opponent's Quetzal, or Chibi Quetzal. So you can attack your caster, the opposing caster, one of their pages, beasties, artifacts, or trap page. Flip any face down trap. So if you target a trap page or a beastie with a trap page under it, the opponent has a choice to flip their trap page over and use it and awaken it and use it in the arena. So beware, your opponent may just put a trap down to psych you out, but that's up to you. The opposing caster may fatigue any number of beasties to become defenders. So if my Quetzal is being attacked and he's still awakened during my opponent's turn, I can fatigue him. Actually, scratch that. If I'm being attacked personally and my Quetzal is awakened still, I can fatigue him to take that damage from me. So he would only take 10 damage, and then the rest of the damage would go to me. But if you're gonna lose by 10 damage and you can do that to save another turn, then it's definitely worth it, or just to tank a ton of damage on certain cards. So yeah, number 5 says apply the rules for first strike. First strike is a trait that looks like this boot here. Where are you? There. I'm sorry, I'm bad with this. Come on. There. So it has that little boot emblem, which basically means in any scenario, if this card is attacked, or if it is doing an attack or being attacked, it's always going to attack first, no matter what, unless the other person has the first strike trait also. And if they both have it, then there's a way to resolve that, and coming up soon. So yeah, the attacker resolves the effects, applies weaknesses and strengths, which we'll get to in a second, and deals damage. Any damage greater than that LP means that the target is destroyed, and yada yada, continue, and then combat ends. So You could be attacked multiple times if your opponent has multiple beasties on the field. So then we move on to weaknesses and strengths. And this is kind of like super effectiveness in the fact that forest trumps fire, fire trumps forest and ice, and so on and so on. So you got to study this wheel and figure out things. But super effective does not do ×2. It only adds 20 damage on. So it's not super broken like some games are, but for instance, if I'm playing Chibiquetza and I'm going against a water type, Chibiquetza hits for 10, meaning that I would hit for 30 on that water type because I'm adding 20 damage to it. So then we move to effects. Certain cards have certain effects. Then you have Frozen, Burn, Poison, Paralyze, Sleep, Scare, and Confusion. And these are some of the best effects in the game. Of those, Paralyze and Sleep are pretty gnarly. Paralyze means you lose all your traits and pretty much anything. It shuts you down and you just can get slammed with attacks. And then Sleep, you can be put to sleep indefinitely if you don't know how to counter it. And I'm not going to go into that in this video, but that's another reason it's broken. And I'm not going to go over the rest because, I mean, you can go over and read them, but they're fairly simple. Most of the time it's like flip a coin, if it's heads you get frozen, something like that. Moving on to traits. Traits are built in and at the upper left portion. So traits are up here, these little guys, and we'll go over them in a sec. I've talked about fourth wall symbols already, so yeah, we'll move on. Mulligan I've talked about. I think you guys understand it by now. This is just advanced combat. It talks about order priority. If you have first strike, if they both have first strike, then follow the rules for first strike. So that's going to be covered in traits. And so on, so on, so on. These are kind of just tips and rules for spellbooks. Yeah, 40-page minimum. It even recommends do under 60. So $300 or 300 card decks really aren't that meta. I wouldn't even say close to it. So let's keep on moving. Side decks, we kind of talked about maximum of 15. If you swap them out, they still have to stay the same numbers. Onto trap pages. Trap pages can be nice. Chibiquetza can actually also be played as a trap, as it has the trap trait here. It looks like that little bear trap icon. Let me see if I can get it in focus. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah. So certain cards like Chibiquetza can either be played normally into the arena or put face down underneath another beastie and activated as a trap. And certain traps have activation conditions, and you have to pay their aura cost when they're flipped up too. If for some reason you play a card face down like a trap and it doesn't have the trait, you lose the game instantly. So don't do that, that's cheating. Onto Terra, you can put 6 Terra in the arena at once. There are a total of all these Terra, and they really just boost cards, so they're very important. And I recommend having 2 to 3 in your spellbook, but don't go overboard with them because once you have 1 on the field, the rest are kind of useless. Yep. If you run out of pages, it's not a special win or lose condition. If all casters run out of pages, the game ends in a draw. So you don't have to worry about winning or losing based on life points if you both run out of pages. Here are bigger details of effects. It just kind of breaks down like how Frozen works. Burn, you lose 20 LP every time you attack while you're burnt. So you can choose to attack or not. You're not always going to take the damage. Poison, you can be stacked 3 times and you lose LP equal to 10 times the number of poison indicators at the end of it every turn. So poison can be quite deadly like that. Paralyze, like I said, it loses a ton of traits, effects, and actually no, it doesn't lose its traits, but it loses its effects. But it loses also its attacks, and their attack damage becomes 0. So it's just dead in the water, and you're kind of gotta take every attack that comes to it. Sleep, they're put to sleep indefinitely until they get attacked. And no, you cannot attack your own card. The best way you can do to yourself is use a water gun on your own card, which would do some damage, but it would wake it up. So when a card is asleep and it doesn't get and it gets attacked a turn after it was put to sleep, the damage done to it is doubled. So that's kind of a deadly combo there if you care to use it. Scared, yeah, there's a little like scary face fear icon, and if you get scared, you flip a coin anytime you would fatigue that page, and if you get tails, that card goes back into your hand, and if you get heads, scared goes away. Confusion can affect beasties. So if you're confused and you go to attack, you flip a coin. If it's tails, you damage yourself for that much damage, and confusion goes away. But if you do heads, you attack, but you keep confusion. And here are the traits. So you've got Bloodsucker. Whenever a beastie deals damage, it recovers LP. So if I was using this card and I did 10 damage, I would also gain 10 health back. Burrow, it's basically dig. You dig underground and you can't be attacked unless someone else has Burrow, or a certain spell activates like Earthquake and it unburrows you and deals you damage. Convert, you can fatigue your beastie to generate aura. These are most common in the forest aura. Destroyer, if it deals damage using an attack to a beastie or artifact, the damaged beastie or artifact is destroyed. So it's kind of just like an insta-kill. So that's very lethal. I'm not even sure if there's a card with that in this set yet. Defender, you double your LP when your opponent is playing. So if Babe the Blue Ox had a defender, he would go from 110 to 220 health when it's my opponent's turn. Fear, this is what I was talking about. When someone with fear is played onto the field, you have to flip a coin. If it's heads, your beastie goes back into your hand, and your opponent chooses which beastie they want to instill fear in. First strike, always deals damage first. If they both have it, flip a coin to determine who deals damage first. So pretty easy way to resolve it. Flash, this is kind of like a stun in a way. If they flip a coin and there's heads, the targeted beastie can't attack because he's kind of stunned. So simple like that is pretty good too. Fleet, Fleet's really good. Basically means you enter awakened into the arena and you can instantly attack instead of having to wait a turn. Flight basically gives you the ability to fly, so any beastie without the flight trait cannot attack a beastie with flight trait. So it's kind of overpowered in that way, but also it's balanced because let's say I attacked. Okay, I'll just use the cards. So here we have the Tizaruk, who has the flight emblem, and let's just say Babe the Blue Ox also, who cannot fly. So if Babe wanted to attack the Tizaruk, it could not. But if the Tizaruk attacks Babe, Babe takes that damage, but also deals damage back in a counter attack. So that's a way to deal damage to them. Or just get a beastie with flight on your team and attack them. Magic proof, you cannot use spells on them. Simple as that. Immortal, it has to be removed from the field by some other way than reducing its LP to 0. So that's like what I was talking about with Mothman. Infectious, if you destroy another beastie, place a token with a certain amount of LP relating to that beastie you destroyed. and it would be the same aura type. Invisible, you can't declare Defender when this is attacking, and you can't attack it. Regen, recovers 10 LP each turn until it reaches its max LP. Spirit cannot be targeted by attacks unless the spirit is removed or you hit it with a death beam or spell of some sort. Stone Skin basically means you can't burn it, you can't paralyze it, can't really do too much. Well, actually, I take that back. You can paralyze it, you can burn it, but it's not gonna take damage from burn, I don't think. It's definitely not gonna take spell damage because it's not an attack, that's a spell. Trap, we kind of covered. Unblockable means you can't make a defender defend against someone with this trait on. And venomous means if it's declared as a defender, then the attacking beastie is inflicted with poison. So that's pretty good too. Fourth wall effects. This just kind of gives you a breakdown of all the fourth wall cards, the Terra cards in this set, and kind of what each of them have to offer. And currently it talks about nearby means within 1 mile, but since we're playing all online right now due to COVID, that's not in super effects, so we're mandating Terra to play the fourth wall effects. So yeah, and then here's just a glossary of some what do you call it, some terms, and then quick reference in the back. It just gives you a quick turn order reference, and yeah, some FAQs I encourage you to look at, and that's the end of the rulebook. So I'll drop a link to this in the description. If you guys haven't joined the MetaZoo Discord, I highly encourage that too. We got people like me and everyone else that are metazoologists, which basically means we're licensed to cast tournaments, and yeah, and hope you join, ask us questions, we're happy to answer. Hope you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe. I'm going to be putting out some more tutorials and some explanations for you, so drop a like, drop a comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.